Hi there, it's Hillary and Jack with Gemplers, and we're all excited here because it hit 40 degrees and the snow's been starting to melt. So right away we're thinking about gardening for our Gemplers employee garden. And gearing up for that, talked to Jack and asked basically what are some of the tools that we'll really be needing to solve problems in the garden this spring and get things planted and growing the way we want them to. And Jack shared some of his favorites. We heard about some of his favorite products this morning during a team meeting, and so we thought it'd be great to share them with you in case you've got some problems that you want to solve in the garden this spring. So I'm going to step behind the camera so that Jack can do this safely without a mask so that you can hear him.
Thanks so much, Hillary. So for the first thing I'd like to talk about are these cow pots. We added these last year and they are just a fantastic solution for starting new seedlings of any sort in the garden. These are made all completely biodegradable, made from cow manure, which is a great source of nutrients, but it also, because they're not peat, they don't destroy peat bogs in the manufacturing process. So I absolutely love these. Now when you're filling up a planting pot, whether it's the cow pots, peat pot, or plastic, you'll want to use a really good potting soil. This year we've added the wonderful Fox Farm products, the Happy Frog and Ocean Forest potting soils and soil conditioners. These are all organic, so if you're growing organic, they're perfect for that application. And they're just chock full of all kinds of nutrients, bat guano in some cases, and made in the Humboldt area of California.
Can you talk a little bit, Jack, about the fact that it's the best, but it's not necessarily the least expensive? So talk about how that pays you back.
Sure.
Once things start growing.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to be your low-end version of a potting soil, but the way that pays you back is that you won't have to use as much fertilizer in the growing process, because the soil contains so many nutrients to begin with. You'll be able to save on your fertilizing costs, and a lot of fertilizers contain materials that would keep you from being able to grow inorganically. And if you do grow organically, a lot of times the soil doesn't have a good nutrient mix. The Fox Farm solves that.
You also had mentioned earlier, which I thought was awesome, that you will get hardier plants, bigger plants, and better yield.
That's correct. Because of the nutrients present in the Fox Farm products, the plants themselves will be healthier, and any of the fruit that's growing on the plants themselves will be much thicker. Great. So what do you do once you have the seedling started? You'll want to make a hole, planting hole in your garden. I always have found that the Hori Hori tool is one of the best solutions of all time. Not only is it great for creating the holes, but if you're in a wild area that has a lot of weeds, there's a good serrated edge. The Hori Hori knife, one of its distinguishing characteristics is the scale on here. So you'll be able to create a rectangular hole or a round hole depending on your seedling container, and know the exact depth that you're creating that hole. I've had one of these for over 20 years now, and I just love it. Recently we came out with the Gemplers Cobrahead cultivator. This is based on the design of a full farm implement cultivator. It simply has the cultivating attachment in a handy handheld unit. And you can use this to break up weeds, roots under the soil, or heavily compacted clay soils. For those of us getting a little bit older who don't really want to bend, we also have a nice long-handled version that allows you to simply use the cultivator down on the ground. For those who don't want to have too many tools in their shed, We have this interesting ergonomic garden tool set. It will contain a typical trowel, a cultivator, as well as 2 knives. And what's really nice about this one is the ergonomic handle. You can continue to dig without getting a sore wrist quite as quickly. Just love these. They've been so popular in the last couple of years. Prior to getting your garden bed ready, obviously one of the challenges you'll have to do would be to rake up the area using a spring brace rake or a bow rake like this. Our newest addition to the bow rake line is this cat fiberglass handled bow rake. The connections on here are just fantastic. They're, I hate to say indestructible, but virtually indestructible. The way that they're manufactured is just the strongest that we've seen by any of the rake manufacturers. It's one of our newest items. And sorry, this dropped, but an old standby is always the king of spades. This is the world's best spade.
It looks like we've already put that one to sleep.
In my opinion, yes. This one is one that we keep here at the office, and as you can see, a number of people have used it. This one's been around the block a time or two, that's for sure. And it continues to have a good sharp edge and a nice footstep so that you can get that planted into the ground easily.
Can you talk a little bit more about the construction on that, Jack? Like what really is the problem that would solve for the customer versus some of the alternatives on the market?
Yeah, the big one is going to be the way that the blade itself is manufactured into the handle. So typically on a lot of shovels or spades, when it's being pushed into the ground, you'll find that there's going to be a tremendous amount of stress at this connection point. The King of Spades really eliminates that, and that's always been its main quality, its main feature, and that's why so many professionals prefer that tool. And then once we get the plants in the ground, obviously they're going to need water. One of our favorite garden hoses for both professional and residential and gardening applications is the Perfect hose. This is one of the lightest weight hoses I've ever used and we've ever had. But the kind of the main benefit of this, you hear a lot of hoses being called kink free. Well, this one doesn't really matter if it's kinked or not. Even if it's tied up in a knot like this, it'll still push water through with the same rate as a straight hose. And because of its construction, any kinks like that come apart right away. It's just one of the best hoses ever. I'd say the Perfect hose. Now when you're working in the garden or in your yard, it's important to have a good pair of gloves for simple gardening tasks. A nice dipped or dotted pair of gloves like our Gemplers red dot gloves are just ideal. They keep the majority of the dirt off your hands, but the knit material keeps your hands from getting too warm, which is just fantastic on a warm summer day. These are ideal. If you're going to be working with any type of abrasive plants or roses and such, I would recommend getting a good pair of leather gloves. Our Gemplers gloves here, fairly soft considering that they're leather, but this is going to give you the best puncture resistance of any type of work glove.
Can you demonstrate, because one of the things I love about those gloves is the ease of the drawstring.
Oh, sure. I'll have to take one off to show this. But the way this works, we have the drawstring on the back and you simply have to pull it to tighten it down. And then not only do you have hand protection as you're working with the wood or with the brushy plants, but this will keep any any sawdust, any seeds, or even water, some water from getting onto your hand from outside.
And then how do you release it? Just pull it back.
Just pull it back.
So easy.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I hope this has been helpful.
So thanks, Jack, so much for sharing some of your favorites. Looks like we've got some tools and some gear that will help you solve some of those problems when you're planting and growing this season. I know that I am really excited to start to get to use these tools. We're going to be putting seeds in cow pots pretty soon for the Gemplers garden, so we'll give you updates as we have them. Thanks.